The automatic doors slid open at Dallas Love Field Airport. The hum of rolling suitcases and boarding announcements filling the air as 10-year-old Imani Barrett walked beside her nanny, Lorraine Parker. Her tiny hands gripped a shiny pink backpack. Her braids clicked softly when she turned her head, and her lavender hoodie, with the word genius stitched across the front, said more about her than she ever would. For most kids, flying was an adventure. But for Imani, this was something more her first time in first class. A seat she had memorized and spoken about nonstop since leaving the house. Seat 3A. A window view. Her own little world in the sky. Lorraine had done this countless times, escorting the daughter of one of the most recognizable self-made billionaires in Texas, but this wasn't just another flight. She wanted it to go smoothly. No hiccups. No problems. Because the trust Imani's father put in her wasn't something she took lightly. The walk down the jet bridge smelled faintly of disinfectant and jet fuel. And when the two stepped into the calm of the first-class cabin, Imani's eyes widened. Soft lighting, leather seats, and space to breathe. She whispered, "It's like the pictures, but better." Lorraine chuckled, pointing her toward row 3. But then the smile on Imani's face faltered, because there, planted firmly in her seat, sat a heavy-set man in his 50s, arms crossed like a king guarding a throne. His thinning hair, flushed cheeks, and smug expression matched the dismissive wave of his hand when Imani politely said, "Excuse me, sir, that's my seat. 3A. She held up her boarding pass like it was a golden ticket. He barely glanced at her, smirk tugging at his lips. "You must be mistaken. Little girl, this is my seat. Why don't you head to the back? That's where kids usually sit." The words hung in the air, thick with arrogance. Lorraine stepped forward, firm but professional, showing him the ticket. "She's correct. This is 3A. He leaned back, folding his arms tighter. "I paid for first class. I'm not moving for a child." Passengers started to notice. Some whispered. Others pretended not to. But Imani didn't cry, didn't shout. She just stood there, boarding pass clutched tight, her silence louder than any tantrum. The flight attendant, Kimberly, arrived and asked for the man's ticket. Reluctantly, he pulled it out, and there was 8C. Not even close. Gasps rippled through the cabin. Still, he refused to budge, insisting the system must be wrong. His name was Gerald Whitford, and his arrogance filled the row more than his bulk ever could. Kimberly kept her calm. Derek, another attendant, stood nearby, and Lorraine's patience wore thin. The whispers in the cabin grew. "Can you believe this? Why don't they just move him?" Imani finally spoke, voice soft but steady. "I'm not moving. This is my seat." Her words pierced the tension. Some passengers clapped lightly. Others nodded. But Gerald only grew louder, insisting children didn't belong in first class, sneering that her family probably couldn't afford it. Lorraine snapped back. "She has every right to sit here. Show some respect." Kimberly called for the captain. Phones appeared, subtle but ready to record, and the weight in the cabin shifted from awkwardness to outrage. When Captain Russell Hargrove arrived, the entire mood of the plane changed. His presence alone silenced the whispers, and with calm authority, he asked Gerald to move. Gerald laughed in his face, claiming he'd flown more miles than the captain had piloted. And then Imani spoke again, her voice clearer than before. "You know you're wrong." The words, simple but undeniable, made the grown man squirm. Passengers applauded. Gerald doubled down, refusing to move, puffing his chest out as if pride alone could keep him in place. Security was called. The murmurs swelled. "About time," one passenger muttered. Others leaned in, eyes wide, phones raised higher. When the officers arrived, Gerald tried to anchor himself, but trained hands pulled him up and out. His protests echoed down the aisle, calling everyone sheep, swearing lawsuits. But the door closed behind him, and relief washed over the cabin like fresh air. Imani finally sat, her boarding pass still clutched in her lap. Lorraine leaned close, whispering, "You did it." But Imani shook her head. He did it to himself. Her words struck deeper than anyone expected. Still, the ordeal wasn't over. Ground control delayed the flight for documentation, the cabin buzzing with frustration. Some passengers muttered about misconnections, one even blaming a spoiled kid in first class. Imani turned, her small voice cutting through the noise. "So you think it's okay for him to steal because it's easier for everyone else?" The man had no reply. Silence spread. Slowly, passengers began to realize they hadn't just witnessed an argument over a seat, they'd watched a child show more courage than most adults dared to. As time passed, whispers of recognition spread. Someone finally said it out loud. "That's Imani Barrett, daughter of Darnell Barrett, the Barrett tech billionaire." The cabin buzzed. Whispers of Forbes covers. Hospitals funded. Schools built. Yet Imani shifted uncomfortably, whispering to Lorraine, "I don't want them to know." Lorraine stroked her shoulder. "You earned respect long before they learned your last name." A few passengers clapped again, not for her family name, but for her, for standing her ground. Hours later, as the engines hummed and the plane finally prepared to taxi, Lorraine whispered, "Remember this moment, baby girl, not because it was hard, but because you stood tall. The world won't always be fair, but if you know your worth, you'll never let them win." Imani gazed out the window, her pink backpack tucked under her feet, and said softly, almost like a promise, "I won't." And maybe that was the true lesson, not that a child want to fight over a seat, but that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just stands quietly, refusing to move, until the truth is impossible to ignore.